Good afternoon. My name is Matt Wilson. I'm a reporter with AIM Media. I'm here today with Hidalgo County Judge Richard Cortez. Judge, welcome.
Thank you, Matt. It's good to be here.
We're here as part of a series of candidate interviews being conducted in partnership with AIM Media, Futuro RGV, the League of Women Voters, and the McAllen Citizens League. Mr. Cortez is running for re-election in November. He's running against Esmeralda Flores, who's running as a Republican. Interviews from these conversations will be posted on social media by Futuro RGV and AIM Media. Judge, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Judge, I've got a series of questions. This is a friendly conversation about topics. Let's start off with kind of just a little bit about you. Tell me about your background, who you are.
Sure. I'm a retired certified public accountant and certified valuation analyst. I was in a public accounting firm for most of my career of over 45 years. My last years of practice, I narrowed my practice to what's known as forensic accounting. I was considered an expert in the assessment and calculation of economic damages.
Awesome. I know you've been in your post for a while. What are your qualifications to serve as judge?
Well, I think I have a lot of experience in the services that the county provides that helps me, make better informed decisions about matters. As you know, one of the biggest things that we do every year is come up with a budget, and that budget basically, tells us, where the money is going to go for the rest of the year, and we need to be equitable in the distribution of those funds to make sure that all the departments get enough money to do their job. The other aspect of service that we do is, the creation of infrastructure for the county. We're the 8th most populous county in Texas, and we keep growing. And as we grow, we need more space. We need more roads, and we need more infrastructure throughout the county. And I think, being the ex-mayor of McAllen, I had the opportunity to build an international bridge, build a convention center, build a library, build a lot of roads. We had drainage, water plants, sewer plants. So I had a lot of experience with construction, and I think that helps me make better decisions.
You were mentioning before we got going that sometimes people misunderstand what the county's role is. There's misconceptions. Talk to me about that. What is your role as judge, and what is the county's role?
Thank you very much. The county is mandated by the state of Texas to basically provide some basic services. We were supposed to provide a judicial system, which are county courts of law, district courts, the probate court, the courthouses in general. Also to have a law enforcement, which is our sheriff's department, our constables that we have, and a jail, the jail that we have to incarcerate people. We keep public records for people. You get not a driver's license, but a marriage license, or you have deeds to your property or whatever. We keep the records. We also are responsible for public health. We have a public health department. We're responsible for emergency management. Then we've broken down our county in basically 4 precincts, and each precinct is responsible for roads and bridges in those precincts. And that's primarily the duties and responsibilities of county government.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot.
Building off that, with that role in mind, if you're reelected, what would your 3 top priorities be?
Well, my 3 top priorities are basically to continue with the projects that we have. I think we need to attract investment to the county. We can't stand still. And I think we need to look into solving some of the issues that poverty is bringing us. We have a disproportionate share of our people in poverty, and that should be a concern to all of us.
Our friends at Futuro have a favorite question, and their favorite question is, what is your best asset and what's your biggest challenge? So
Sure.
What's the county's?
I believe for sure our biggest assets are educational institutions like UTRGV, Texas A&M University, and South Texas College. The biggest challenge is, how do we grow our taxpayer line faster than our welfare line? Right now, in order for us to do that, we need to provide opportunity to our people. We need to create human capital with our people. And that takes all of us working together in order to do that. And that's always a challenge, to get all of us working in the same direction.
Building off that, the county doesn't work alone. It's not an island. It needs to find partners, and it needs to find people it can work with. What's your approach been to building coalitions, and what will it be if you're elected?
Well, we're doing that already. We found out in some of this monies that we received from the federal government because of COVID, that it was difficult for us to distribute them, to a county that's arguably over 1 million people, even though the census says we're closer to 900,000. I think we're every bit over 1 million people. So what we did is try to build a network of relationships with all our municipalities and our school districts, and even non-governmental agencies, so that we could have a network to be able to communicate effectively and efficiently with one another. So as they had information to share with us, or we had information to share with them, we could do that. Right now we have a group of people that are from the county that are going to the small cities and basically building satellite offices. We recently announced that we ran out of money to help people, pay the electrical bill. We had programs to pay your taxes. We had programs to pay your rent. Well, it's a lot easier for us if we have other people helping us, because if not, we're a bottleneck. We're kind of an hourglass that you can just put so much through there. So we're working with that. And then on economic development, we need to work with all of the municipalities and of the region, so we can have a common goal and a common vision, and it's what it is that we need, to attract investment here. Because without jobs, we can create all the human capital we want, but if there's not a job at the end of the rainbow, as they say, then it doesn't bring the value that we want it to bring.
Let's talk about that, about jobs, and about what you mentioned the county's biggest asset is, which is higher ed. I know the med school was huge at UTRGV. STC is doing a lot of great career-oriented stuff. What do we need next? I know there's been talk of a law school. What's the next big milestone project for higher ed in the county?
Well, that I'm going to let the people in the universities, figure that out. To me, I think that, America's aging. A lot of our trade people, like plumbers and electricians and welders, are up there. I think the median or the age is around in the 50s. So that means that we have a lot of growth that we need to grow on those vocational areas. So I would like to see more growth in that area, because not everybody has the time or the money to go a 4-year program and be able to have the sufficient jobs that require that type of education here. But we have many jobs that pay well in other vocational areas. So I think that we need to study ourselves well and find out what we're best suited for, and do the things that we have the highest probability of success.
Staying on the education note, higher ed doesn't matter if you don't have students going there. And I know that during the pandemic, we saw Wi-Fi and internet access become a top priority. What has the county done to expand internet connectivity and access, and what should it be doing in the future?
Well, I think it's very important, and yes, COVID kind of identified a weakness that we had. When we received our first batch of money for CARES Act, we allocated $20 million because we felt that it was really unfair to a lot of our people, a lot of our students that lived in the rural areas that didn't have access to internet. They were lost because they couldn't receive information or participate in any off-site learning. So we invested $20 million of our own money, and of course we became advocates, seeking funds from the state and the federal government, to help us bridge that digital divide.
Let's move on to some more challenging stuff. I know before we got talking on camera, you were talking about the jail, overcrowding at the jail. Describe that problem to me, and how does the county fix it moving forward?
Well, the problem is we have too many people in jail, and you have people that have committed felonies and people that have committed misdemeanors. So you have a violent criminal and you have a nonviolent criminal. Obviously, the longer we keep a nonviolent criminal or inmates with misdemeanors in jail, then the cost continues to grow for the taxpayer. So we need to find an efficient way to magistrate them and really get them out of there and bring them to the courthouse as soon as possible. And that's, to me, it'd be the quickest and the fastest way, to get people out of our jails. But as we continue to grow, what we're seeing is, we're seeing the impact of being in the border. Some of the illegal people that are here are committing crimes, and I think to the extent that continues, because we're a border area, we're gonna continue with that burden. We're already looking into expanding our facilities for a jail, where we're in discussions, which I can't give you any more details, but in trying to expand that. But at the end of the day, we can't control those that want to commit crime.
Sure. It's going to stay a problem, I'm afraid.
It's going to stay a problem, I'm afraid, yes.
You mentioned being a border community, which is a unique, perhaps not exactly on a county judge's mandate across the nation. What role do you think you play in regards to the immigration debate, and how would you or have you involved yourself in that debate?
Well, I'm also a past president of the Border Trade Alliance. Border Trade Alliance is a tri-national organization of Canadians, Americans, and Mexicans dealing with trade issues. So we've been dealing with this issue for many, many, many years. To me, when President Reagan was here back in 1986, he gave amnesty to millions of immigrants. But the problem was that after he gave amnesty, the law stayed the same. So we continue to have an antiquated laws that do not meet the needs of our economy. So we don't have a fast and efficient way for immigrants to come here legally. So their only choice is to come here illegally. And I'm talking about, the people mostly in the manual labor type of thing. I just got back from Washington 2 weeks ago, Austin this week, and I can guarantee you that almost every waiter, every hotel housekeeper, every cab driver was an immigrant. So obviously our economy needs immigrants, and if they don't have a fast and easy way for him to come, then their only choice is coming illegally. When I speak to the Border Patrol, they says, Judge, says, look, 30 people are coming in between the ports of entry. 2 are ugly, bad, rapists, murderers, drug people, really bad people. 28 just want to come and find a job. Okay, and you see them coming, can you please pick out the 2 bad ones? Okay, and they say, well, no. So we have to go get all 30 of them. So I think that if Congress were to come in and adjust our immigration policy, provide an orderly way for workers who want to come here, then we're going to continue to have this problem. I can't give you a short answer to a complicated problem. I'm going to give you an example of what happened in Arizona. In Arizona, where they grow lettuce, during harvest time, about 30,000 people from Mexico would come over to harvest the lettuce. After the crop was picked and harvested, then they would go back. Well, someone said, oh my God, we got 30,000 illegals coming in there, we've got to do something. Well, then they stopped it. Well, now the people coming from Mexico that had no work in Mexico were either said, well, wait a minute, I better stay on this side because now they're making it hard for me to come. So to me, I want to bring attention to the need for Congress to sit down and figure this out, because an enforcement-only policy is never going to get us the border security that Americans want.
Sure. Let me move on to a different topic. Do you believe there's a need for a veterans hospital in Hidalgo County? And if so, what can you do and what would you do as county judge to bring one to the area?
Sure. You know, my opinion, Matt, doesn't matter because my opinion is a subjective opinion from a layperson. I think the evidence has to speak for itself. I think we need to know how many veterans are hospitalized and how many veterans would be in a veterans hospital, because you want quality services for those veterans. I'm a big advocate of veterans. I tell you, God bless each and every one of them for the service that they've provided. But the evidence that has been given to me is that we don't have the critical mass to justify a veterans hospital. So to me, I'm for bringing a veteran hospitals here if I have enough objective evidence to show that there's a need. And I think all our congressmen, all our senators, all our state representatives would join me, or I would join them to make sure that that happens, because our veterans deserve the best.
Sure. Follow the data.
Follow the data.
You know, speaking of data, data usually shows in the Rio Grande Valley and Hidalgo County that we have pretty awful voter turnout. It's a problem we struggle with. Another one that's maybe not necessarily part of your mandate as county judge, but what should be done to increase it, and what would you do to try to increase it?
Matt, I wish I would know the answer to that question. We have 415,000 registered voters, eligible voters in Hidalgo County. We had a little bit less than that for the primary. We had a 10.64% voter turnout. So out of 400,000, 10%, showed up. I don't know what the answer is. Either they think everything is fine and dandy and they don't need, and they're happy they don't need to come and vote. But to us, it's extremely important that the Rio Grande Valley have a higher percentage of people voting, because when you go to Washington or Austin, they pay attention to how many votes come out of this area. So when we're over there asking and requesting for funding and resources to bring back over here, the number of votes that come from an area matters.
Sure. A real problem in our area, and a problem that y'all often have the responsibility of addressing, is poverty. We're an impoverished community largely. This is a really broad question, but tell me about the situation and tell me what you would do to address poverty in our communities.
Well, thank you for asking that question. Before COVID hit, I had formed a task force. We call it the Anti-Poverty Task Force. And this happened, I think their first meeting was February the 19th of 2020. Well, as you know, on March 21st, we declared an emergency because we had our first COVID patient here. And of course, we didn't do much. So for 2 years, we were pretty much dealing with COVID. But now that COVID is much less of a concern, we've reactivated. And now it's called the Prosperity Task Force. They felt that an anti-poverty had a bad connotation to it. And I agree with them. We've broken it down into 8 subgroups in order for us to tackle the very complicated issue of poverty. And basically what I've come up with that I thought should be a good approach to solving it is we start with, okay, we have people in poverty. There's already resources available to help them. Let's make sure that all the resources that are available, we match it and give it to them possibly, and then learn and understand what are the contributing factors. Why are those people in poverty? Is it a legal issue? Is it a health issue? Is it a transportation issue? Is it a lack of language? What is causing that, so that we can in some way assist them? But the ultimate goal is that how do we select people that are in that target group and create human capital with them? And that's where the subgroups are coming in. And I said, okay, well, wait a minute. So we have this large group of people in poverty. Who do we select to help out? I can't help someone that's 65 years old, blind, and on Social Security. What do you do with a person, like that, other than to assist them as best as you can? But you can help a 35-year-old with a family that's healthy and has a good mental awareness and capacity. We can train you to do something else. So the first step to me, I said, okay, I need one of the subgroups has to be counseling so that they can counsel those people and find out what are they more likely or not be able to achieve. Then once we says, okay, you need a vocational career path or you need a higher learning career path. Well, the second thing is how do we pay for it? So we needed a financial component for that. So then that was subgroup number 2. So now we figured out what's the best career path for you. We found out how to pay for it. Then who's going to do the training for you? So that was another subgroup, which was a vocational or higher learning. And then you go through this process. I have some grandkids at the universities, and they were taking accounting classes, and all of a sudden their grandpa became really important to them because I knew the accounting answers to the questions that they couldn't. So they would call me. So I said, you know what? You go through all this problem to get them enrolled in some higher learning or higher education. We need mentors. We need to make sure that if they get discouraged, that somebody's there to push them and help them not to quit. So we go through all of this process, and here we are. We finally got you graduated. You get your diploma. You get your certificate of excellence. Now what? So we needed the job creation, which is another subgroup, which I have some very excellent people working us with that. Why is that important? Because we need to know from the employers how to train future workforce and vice versa. If we're not communicating, then we're just guessing. We're guessing as to what we need to do. But we're all working together. Then our chances of being more successful than what we are now.
I want to stay with poverty. Describe. I know that poverty is prevalent in our rural communities that aren't annexed by municipalities. Could you describe the situation there and whether anything can be done to address it and help people out in those communities?
Sure. And it's no secret, we believe we have a high percentage of our people that are here as non-citizens,
sure,
living here in this area. That restricts them from normal financing or normal transactions. So a lot of them, go to the rural areas where basically they go into a contract to make monthly payments or whatever. And in these areas, we don't have enforcement policies like municipalities has. So one of the problems that we're having, and 1/3 of the people that live in Hidalgo County live in non-incorporated areas, because we have urban areas in non-incorporated areas. Trash pickup, brush pickup becomes an issue. We're having a very severe problem in people dumping their mattresses, their old furniture in our drainage district canals. Tires are going into things. It's plugging up our drainage canals. Is really causing a problem. Also, people just go out on the highway and just throw the trash outside. That's a health problem. So all of this population of our non-incorporated areas is causing not only a financial problem, but a health problem.
I want to talk about a different health problem, COVID-19. I know that we're through the pandemic, or at least we've gotten to a place where we're coping with it. What, though, have you as county judge learned from reacting to it, and what sort of long-term changes in regards to health do you think it spurred? For example, I think at one point there was talk about building some kind of permanent facility to address potential pandemics and health outbreaks. So what kind of permanent changes on that front are we seeing?
That's a difficult question to answer because the need is great. What we learned from COVID is that if cities and schools and county law enforcement work together, we can become more efficient and effective in providing services. When we got started, the biggest prize was, hey, I can get tested for COVID. Not everybody could get tested for COVID. And now anybody can get tested for COVID. When the vaccine came out, not everybody could get a vaccine. Now anybody can get a vaccine. But all that came through trial and error and working very hard. What we learned is that our health department wasn't ready to deal with this much volume of work. So we've invested in a new lab. We're building as we speak now. So we want to be able to be self-supported and sufficient in the things we didn't have when COVID came, and I believe we're working towards that area. We were fortunate that we received a lot of federal funding, and we invested all those federal funds as much as we could for anything that we didn't have before that we needed. We went and bought it. So I think we're better equipped now to deal with a future pandemic or a future emergency than we were at least a year ago.
Yeah, I want to stay with COVID. Really, when it was it's still a significant problem, but when it was a crisis, the county took the lead. I think lots of municipalities and school districts were looking to y'all. Was y'all's response a success story, and what do you think it means for disasters moving forward, as far as working together?
No, I think it's critical. I think it's critical. We don't live in a perfect world, and there's never a perfect solution to anything. So if people expect, or I expect somebody else to be perfect, and you expect me to be perfect, we're both going to be disappointed because we're not perfect. But if we work together and try to minimize errors, that works out the best. And I think what we learned from this pandemic was that working together gives us better results. And I think that there's confidence now in each other that I think is going to continue to build that support group. Because, you know, if you don't trust me, then I can't be effective. You have to trust me, and I have to prove to you that you can trust me. And that's what we've been trying to do, to make sure that people know that we care and we're going to do the best thing we can. Are we perfect? No. We're going to make mistakes? Yes. But we're going to try to eliminate them as best as we can.
Sure, I certainly didn't, as a newspaper reporter, expect to have to type pandemic like 3,000 times over the past 2 years. So it was a surprise.
Well, let me tell you that some people said, oh, this is not true. Well, in July of 2021, we were putting 40 bodies in refrigerated trucks. Those were real bodies that were dying. So no, this was a serious thing. Thank God that, you know, hopefully that's in the past.
I got one more question. And we're going to switch gears again to infrastructure. Which infrastructure issue are you most concerned about addressing in the county, and what would you do to improve on that infrastructure issue?
Well, I think we're doing it now. It's just going to take time, and that's drainage. You know, the taxpayers were able to give us $190 million to improve drainage here. You know, we're a delta. Delta's not good to, you know, to build homes around and infrastructure around. So we need a good drainage system, and I think that we're doing a good job. I know that we had a plant in Weslaco when the first rain in 2018 came. I mean, we were literally 7 feet of water, and then 2 years later, we basically had the same amount of rain come in, and then there was no water. So obviously, things are improving there. We're going to be able to go to the taxpayers again, ask you for more money, and that's the good news is that we believe that because of the efficient way that we've been using those funds, that we can borrow another $190 million without raising your taxes. So we're going to continue with that. Roads continue to be an issue. Who likes going through our interchange there in FAR? I mean, I just hate having to go through there. If I'm going to go across to the east side, I know I have to take off 30 minutes ahead of time because you never know, you know, what's going to happen. So our continued need for roads is going to be there. What I'm hopeful now that we've consolidated all our MPOs and we're working very well with the municipalities, that we're going to continue to do as we're doing with drainage, you know, solve those problems.
You know, roads, drainage, well, not so much drainage, but roads, rural development, overcrowding at the jail. It sounds like lots of the county's issues are just because we're a growing community, which is a good thing, but it feels like at times maybe we're having trouble keeping up with the growth. Is that accurate?
Well, the answer is yes. You know, growth, you know, when we charge 59 cents per $100, you know, so sometimes the more growth we have, we go the other way. We're not receiving sufficient money to match the expenses that we have. That's why managing those resources become critically important. When I was mayor of McAllen, I mean, we had revenues from sales tax, ad valorem taxes, bridge revenues. We even made money in the golf course. As a county, we only have one source of revenue, and those are the taxes of the people. And that's why I'm concerned with this brush and sanitation expenses that we're having. We're getting 75% of our money from people who live in the municipality or properties living in municipalities. It seems a little unfair that we're using some of those funds to pick up people's trash in the rural areas, but we're working on solving that problem too. Well, I just want to thank Futuro McAllen, the Taxpayers League, and your company for doing this. It gives me a great opportunity to speak to our taxpayers, to speak to the people. You know, every day I think I get better every day, because every day I have more experience in dealing with the matters. But county government is a complex situation, and experience matters. Sounds like it. Folks, again, copies of these interviews will be posted on the Monitor's social media, as well as Futuro RGV's. Check them out. Should be good talks. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Matt.